Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Friday, October 10th. I will get right into the title of the video right now. We're going to start off with what's happened to Gaza and Palestine. So, it says here, reports from various organizations, including the United Nations and other groups analyzing satellite imagery, indicate widespread destruction in Gaza Strip. The percentage of damage varies depending on what is being measured, structure, homes, or total territory, and the date of assessment, but the destruction is consistently reported to be catastrophic. Okay, so we'll get to a few images in here in a moment, right? But there's been, drone footage and these other things, even though Israel isn't allowing that stuff in there. And they're supposed to be having like a ceasefire right now. They've made a deal with Trump, and they are still bombing Gaza. So even after all of this here, which is this, here are some figures reported by different sources. On a recent report, the Guardian, cities, 70% of Gaza's estimated 250,000 buildings, 250, have been damaged or destroyed. So that's 78%, almost 80%. Doctors Without Borders estimated nearly 70% of all structures in the Strip has been destroyed or damaged. UN Satellite, based on satellite imagery, reported in early 2025 that nearly 69% of the buildings have been damaged or destroyed. That's early 2025. Housing units. Reports indicate that over 90% of the housing units have been damaged or destroyed. The Gaza Media Office reported that 88% of Gaza Strip total area has been destroyed since October 7, 2023. The organization Geisha reported that as of the mid-2025, approximately 85% of the total area of Gaza Strip is considered off-limits and or under effective displacement orders by the Israeli military. In summary, the figure of 85% aligns with reports of total area of Gaza Strip that has been inaccessible or damaged under displacement, and the other assessments put the percentage of damage or buildings destroyed in the range of 70 to 80%, but 90% of homes. So that's basically the whole country, right? And so I showed a video in which there was a guy, an Israeli developer, who was making jokes, and there was all these Israeli people laughing about it. And he was talking about how the first, they were going to rebuild Gaza with, make a deal with Trump and America to rebuild Gaza, and he was inviting investors to get involved with it, right? And the first part was already done, and that was the demolition. When you're going to do gentrification, when you're going to do ethnic cleansing, you have to demolish a city to rebuild it. And I'm assuming they're going to try to get American money and taxpayers to pay for it, on top of all the, horrific things that this does to the Palestinian people. And so that's what's happened there. So this fucking idea that there's a peace deal by that piece of shit President Trump saying that he's bringing peace to the Middle East, Israel got what it really wanted, which is the Gaza Strip, and they are going to ethnic cleanse it. There's no place for these people to go, right? And so then there's all this toxic material that's released in these bombings. It's just, even if it's just, powderized cement, like airborne cement that has been, that's in powder form that you breathe in is, cancerous and all these other things. Just that, and never mind all the toxic materials and shit. All the things that are in the buildings, all these things that are either airborne or now in the water supply. They have no water, they have no food. Israel won't let them get any support and aid from people. I mean, it's completely fucked, right? So this is what it looks like, right? These damaged buildings here, all these buildings, this is what it looks like. It looks like, it's been hit by a nuclear bomb. They've destroyed these buildings. They're unlivable, right? And you have to have lots of money. These people don't have any money. They don't have anything left, right? They're not going to be able to rebuild this city. They can't just go and rebuild their homes, right? They have to, just the machinery you need to excavate. This is a place that's like a 20-mile by 20-mile strip. What are they going to do? Dump all the rubble into the ocean? They have no place to dump all this stuff, right? And then they have no homes to go back to. They have no. It's just this like toxic waste dump. and they have, not the ability to rebuild. So they're fucked. These people there's nothing they could do. Israel's got them in this, this whole thing. Look at this massive amount of area. They're just building after building, and the ones that are around it aren't necessarily even livable. And so there's no infrastructure. They have to rebuild the infrastructure, the roads, all the stuff that they have to do, right? All the things that they have to do to make Gaza a place where you can live. And then they're not going to be able to do it. They're going to be taken out of the city. And so this is, there's maybe as many as 680,000 people dead there, maybe 200,000 children or more. People don't know. And how many people are starving, and their lives are significantly shortened by the toxicity of their area. I mean, this is just horrific what they've done to here. It's a war crime. Israel's a piece of shit, a lying piece of shit country. And this is just one of the worst things done in modern history. And you just can't, there's a fucking crane backhoe trying to get rid of this stuff, probably trying to uncover. There's children and people buried in these buildings often when they come down. So this is what Israel has done. So let's get into what a piece of shit Charlie Kirk is. Before we get into the piece of shit Charlie Kirk, this is what Trump people posted on the real Donald Trump. We've seen this over and over again, right? So you think about this, what they've done there. Remember Donald Trump said, boy, they're just unlucky. The Palestinians are just really unlucky, right? I mean, this fat fuck and his bloated fucking Jabba the Hutt, shit he's going on. They want to put Trump Gaza in there and a big statue of Trump and all this shit after they, he's done gentrification before. He's done slum, he's been a slumlord, and he's pushed poor people out of a neighborhood, this kind of stuff that Trump does, right? These two fat fucks sitting up there by this Hotel Gaza. I mean, these are just the worst people. They're like vermin, right? They're rats. Trump Gaza, right? So, this is the people who made this. They were just testing something out. They didn't think people would take this seriously. They're using this AI tool to make content, this AI slop. And Trump put it up there. Okay, so let's get into Charlie Kirk here. The world has the right to defend itself from Israel. So this was popped up on Facebook on top of everything. So I thought I'd share that before we get into these comments. Okay. So I got 2 comments yesterday. This was kind of sparked. I was going to do that for the beginning of the video. I had already asked ChatGPT about the percentage of damage to a city, right? Anything more than 50%, the city's totaled. I mean, even 25%, right? You just can't come back from that, especially if you have no money, no source of income. I mean, they don't have anything there. All the businesses are destroyed. Who knows? I mean, their banks, all this stuff. They have nothing. No support from the outside world. So someone said this. Soon as I heard him say Charlie was a piece of shit, that was the end for me. Really bad taste. Oh, was it really bad taste? Is it bad taste, right? So, we're going to get into that in a moment. Why Charlie's a piece of shit. Then somebody else wrote, did you say you think Charlie is a piece of shit? I may have misunderstood your sentiment. No, I said it. He's a piece of shit. I think Charlie at least stood for a good message. No one is perfect. He was surrounded by snakes. It wasn't that he was surrounded by snakes. It was that he was a piece of shit, right? He was 100% piece of shit. So let's get into it here. Okay, so this is when Charlie Kirk is getting sheckled. First he sheckled up, right? So that I'll show you when he got sheckled up. But this is after he realized he got sheckled, and then they really sheckled him, right? They sheckled the shit out of him. All right, so here.
Democrat Party and with independents, they have shifted mightily from at least double digits highs to single digit lows now. With
Megyn Kelly also getting shackled here.
When it comes to approval, and also with respect to, you and I speculated about this at the Turning Point event, whether the possibility of Jeffrey Epstein possibly being a Mossad agent or asset.
Yeah, he was. Come on.
Or affiliated with. That's been turned around on me too, to you must be anti-Semitic. What the hell? That's such bullshit. The same people who say you can criticize Israel, that's fine. We won't call you anti-Semitic if you criticize Israel. Now, turn around immediately and say you're anti-Semitic for even raising that. I completely reject that. And I raise this as a pushback against my friends on that particular strain of the aisle to watch it, because you don't want to alienate people who are openly your friends by going nuts in your crackdowns on mild
Nuts is the
pushback
right
on
word.
anything related to Israel. Now you take it.
I'm so glad you brought this up, and I would second that, Megan. I think I have a bulletproof resume showing my defense of
Because
Israel,
he's shackled up, right? He's talking about Benny shackled up.
both on
You do.
campus, on social media, to great, let's just say mockery and scorn at times. Because I believe it, right? I believe in the scriptural land rights given to
Okay, so that's the promised land, which I've talked about. It's more than just Israel. It's part of like 5 or 6 different other countries, some whole countries, sometimes half the country. The biblical description of Israel is more than just what Israel is today. So he believes in that. Like, the rest of the people don't. Like, people don't believe in the Bible. And so you can't use that as a way to say we get to claim this land, right? Just because your fucking piece of shit Old Testament book says it. And so, but that's bad. But that's because he was shackled up.
Israel. I believe in fulfillment of prophecy. And again, I'm not a theologian, but I'm a Christian. My life was changed in Israel. The spiritual energy is so amazing there. I want them to win. I've said that repeatedly.
Same.
And however, Megan,
You want them to win. They're winning now, right? By destroying 85% of Palestine or the Gaza Strip, and they're winning now. Is that winning? Is that winning, killing 600,000 people? That winning, Charlie, right?
you're hitting on something very potent and important. Now, let me first say, I don't want to judge an entire group, because there's been many people in the pro-Israel world that have been very sweet, very kind, very nuanced, very Charlie, you're with us, you don't have to agree all the time. However, and I will say this, the behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. Not like we're going to be pro-Hamas, not like we're going to, but we're like, honestly, the way you are treated.
But can you be anti-genocide at least? You piece of shit, right? You piece of shits.
Me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical
ridiculous.
Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat, literally the Jewish Sabbath. I visit Israel and fight for it. And there's another article out in the Times of Israel today. I could read it on air. I was just reading before I got on. Charlie, what are you doing? Like, why are you? What am I doing? I'm sorry. Like, let's just take a step back here. Like, I'm an American citizen. Yes, I want Israel to win. Yes, I'm a Christian. But, like, some of the mess, and you've seen how I've been treated, Megan, by some, not all, by some.
You've been treated so badly, poor little Charlie. Poor little piece of shit, Charlie. Poor little Charlie Shekels, you've been mistreated. Did they fucking blow up your fucking home? Well, I guess, I mean, they did get him. This is before this other thing happened. But when he's whining about this here, he called it kvetching when he wrote to Bibi, right? Like, did they blow up your home? They gave you $100 million, and they expected for you to shill for them. And then, they gave you $100 million, and when they do that, they don't want you to criticize them. They own you, right? But he realizes how unfair they are, right? When he gets to it here.
It's very irritating.
It's
It's been
almost
so
as if
unfair.
you,
They were coming after you after a turning point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to
questioning
criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was
you're not allowed to,
overrepresented.
though. No, you're not allowed to.
So you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to. You can't do it. You're not allowed to.
Worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the 5th time. I love Israel. I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megan. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do.
So you look at them whine. Yeah, you see what they do? When they made a deal with you, and this is what they expected. They expected you to taint like 100%, get your nose in there, and get, they don't expect a fucking word of criticism. They don't even want to, they don't even want to see an expression of disdain. They want to commit a fucking genocide. They want you to go out on the campus and strong arm these college kids, which we'll get into. I'll show you in a second. So this is a guy. He's upset, right? Because he realizes what kind of people he's dealing with here, what kind of government, what kind of attitude he's dealing with. Like, not that you're allowed to speak any kind of truth to them, and if you do, they question your character after all you did for them. But they did a lot more for you, Charlie Shekels. They sheckled, so he got sheckled up, and now he realizes he got sheckled. So I'm building a case for him being a piece of shit, right? You guys get that. Just lost a huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. And I'm thinking invited Candace. So he had to get rid of Candace because he had Jewish donors that give him $2 million. And Turning Point, him came out and said, we're not receiving money from Israel. Yeah, well, now we all know you did, right? Because you're admitting it here. Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes, and I cannot and will not be bullied like this. Oh, they're bullies? So they're not. So, remember this, because I'm going to show you this other stuff, the way you used to talk about. So now you know that they're bullies, right? Now you get it. Like, you taint licked for 4 years, did everything possible to, support Israel and you shout these college kids down. And then you hint at criticizing, or maybe you guys should wrap the thing up, right? Leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause, right? So this is when he got sheckled, right? So first he took the shekels, he sheckled up, he took their money, right? He took 32 pieces of silver, whatever it was, and then he said, no, I can't do this anymore because they're bullying him, not because of some moral, again, he only started criticizing them because all his contemporaries and all his fans realized that Israel was a piece of shit. The whole world is looking at Israel being a complete piece of shit at what they're doing to the Gaza Strip. And, it's self-destructive behavior on their part. We'll see if that plays out. But everyone else is against him, and Charlie Kirk has finally come in realizing he's going to lose his audience. He's compromised, not because he feels bad for the Palestinian people, that 80% of their country has been destroyed. Let's turn back the clock before Charlie Kirk realized what kind of people he was dealing with. When he was completely shackled up, he's getting, hundreds of millions of dollars from Israel. They were building buildings. One guy wanted to take his name off the building that he built for Turning Point. Some guys, Israeli supporters, built buildings for him, millions of dollars a year from donors. Imagine getting $2 million a year from somebody donating for you to prostitute yourself for a shitty country that's doing horrific things to another country and people, like, murdering babies, and you're taking that fucking money. Will you qualify as a piece of shit? Yeah, he's a piece of shit, right? That falls into the piece of shit category. But here he is, these college students.
Say Hamas was eradicated. What do you think should happen between both the communities in order to bring, peace between both of them and make things better?
Yeah, so just so everyone's clear, the reason why Gaza's under Hamas control is that there was a peace deal that was signed. Israel got out of Gaza in the pursuit of peace. Israel gave up the Sinai in pursuit of peace. Israel gave up portions of the West Bank in pursuit of peace. Mm-hmm. Israel has actually decreased the land size of their nation significantly in the last 40 years. Mm-hmm. They have shrunk their country by nearly 75%. Since 1975. Most people, they don't teach you this in college. You can look it up.
Yeah, because it's not true. You can look it up. It's not true at all, right? These were the talking points. Remember, he would go to these guys. All these guys are claiming, these guys that are battling it out with Candace Owens, these Jewish donors, they were claiming that Charlie was going to them for talking points, that he would go to these people. He had rabbis and people that from Israel that would tell him the things he was supposed to say here. And he would get this information without fact-checking it himself, right? And so, first of all, the place was called Palestine in 1945. And it was the majority of people, I think it was 4-1, 5-1 Palestinian people to Jewish people. And the Palestinian people were actually getting along with the Jewish people. This is a place where that 3,000-year beef wasn't playing out. The Palestinian people were not abusing the Jewish people. And it happened before the whole World War II happened, also in Germany. There are places where Jewish people were living with other groups of people as an ethnic minority, and they weren't being mistreated. But then the Rothschilds went to the UN. The Rothschilds owned England, and they had all these other whatever their influence was, and they wanted the promised land, so they took Palestine, and they took the best parts and gave it to Israel, and then Israel had these various wars, the 6-Day War, and they increased their all of it, their land mass, right? I mean, during that time, they bombed an unarmed American communication ship with American Navy personnel dead and maimed and shit, and trying to blame it on Egypt, but they got busted, and they still were dicks about that. I mean, stole American secrets, spied on America, stole our nuclear technology, bunch of shit. Like, they're supposed to be your friend, right? This is how your friend treats you. They're just, I mean, they're not even like, they can be pro their country, but they're just fucking dicks, right? And so this is the country. This is Israel. This is how Israel's treat America. Israel will stab America in the back after getting hundreds of billions of dollars, right? Whether there's a breakup, they'll do whatever it takes to be a piece of shit about this, which Charlie now has found out, because look at how happy he was when he was shackled up. He's telling this college student this bullshit, right? And so we now know what they've done to Gaza. They've turned it into a demolition site, which was their goal all along. Hamas is their fucking asset. Hamas gave them a reason to do what they wanted to do all along. And if this guy was a truthful person, he'd say it. But when you're getting hundreds of millions of dollars and they're building buildings for you and assets, and you go there and you're celebrated, and you go on these college campuses like the real piece of shit you are, and you lie to college students who don't know any better because they're college kids. I mean, they kind of do, but they don't have the ability to articulate it. And so let's finish this up here.
And in the pursuit of peace. And yet we've had more conflict, more strife. Number one, for the people in Gaza, Egypt has to step up. But they don't want them because they know that it's not exactly easy. Jordan has to step up. They don't want them either.
So he's saying that they should be taken out of Israel. So that these countries should be taking these refugees. We don't want them in America. No, we don't want 2 million Palestinians here. And we're already giving, these countries so much money, right? We're giving not only Israel, but Egypt money, right? And because Israel was number one donor, right? The Tucker Carlson piece where he documented all the money that we've given them. We've given them $30 billion since the beginning of this war, $300 billion in the last so many years. And then they give this money back to pieces of shit like this, and they get shackled up. But so this is before he gets shackled, right?
So Arab partners don't want these people, and so they have to be forced to take them and assimilate them.
We have to force other countries to take and assimilate these people so we can give Israel that land. Fuck you, you piece of shit, right? Fuck this guy. This guy right fucking here, fuck this guy. He's a piece of shit. Now, again, whatever happened to him. I don't know if he's alive or dead. I don't know if he was just an actor. I don't know what he was doing. But again, he only started having a problem with Israel when he started to lose his audience, when he started to lose his credibility, not because of what they were doing to these people. He's out there talking to these college kids. And so when he's debating these college kids, right, when you're in college, you're becoming an adult. You're learning to think for yourselves, and you're learning to use critical thinking skills. And Trump, the piece of shit Trump is, I mean, even a bigger piece of shit, that fucking guy. I mean, he's shackled. He's the biggest taint licker out there. No one's more owned by Israel than Trump. And his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, what a piece of shit that motherfucker is, right? But he's withholding money to these colleges. Again, schools I don't even like Harvard. But these kids are protesting something, and they get to do that. You get to be outraged. And when you're in college, when you're a dumb fuck college kid, you're just becoming an adult. You don't know what you're doing. And if you get passionate about something, you should be able to express yourself. But Trump is pushing back against freedom of speech because he's been shackled, right? They've been all shackled up. And so this guy, is out there and bullying these kids and telling them like he's like some knower. What he just said to this girl is completely false. Israel's the aggressor. They've always been that. They've been very aggressive. Palestine doesn't have a military. Israel has always been wanting to glom that land. And he knows about it too because he believes in the biblical rights, right? So this is the biblical land rights that this piece of shit Charlie Kirk believed in. So here's Israel. So that's the original Israel, and there's Gaza Strip somewhere in here. That's all part of it. Syria, most of Syria, half of Iraq, some of the best parts of Saudi Arabia, the upper portion. I believe this is Jordan in here that they don't have. Lebanon, right? And then a big portion of Egypt, and they have all this beachfront. They're getting more of the Mediterranean Sea. They get all this extra coast. They get all this coast on the Red Sea. They get part of the Persian Gulf here, right? All this stuff. They'd be neighbors with Iran. They'd be on the border there with Iran. So this would be all of Israel. If the promised land was given back to Israel, the biblical rights, as Charlie Shekels Kirk, the piece of shit, wants, right? This is what piece of shits push for. The biblical rights. I believe in biblical land rights, this motherfucker, right?
Let me ask you, in the conflict of Israel versus Hamas, who's the good guy?
I believe both Hamas and the Israeli government are evil, but I think also that there is no justification.
Are they equally?
There is no justification.
Are they equally evil? Well, can we pick the lesser of two evils? This is this master debater. This guy's supposed to be a man of Jesus, right? Are they equally evil? Isn't Hamas a little bit more evil, right? Like this, is that what we're down to here, right? Well, they're both evil, but like one of them is like really evil. Hamas is a part of Israel. So, this is something Israel has maybe taught to America. America sucks. Like America, we've dropped fucking atomic bombs on people, like in Japan and shit like that, right? And Al-Qaeda means the list, right? You can look that up. Al-Qaeda means the list in Arabic. And it was a list of CIA assets. Remember, bin Laden was a CIA asset, right? Remember when ISIS was the old Republican Guard. These were the elite soldiers in Iraq under Saddam Hussein. And America made a deal with them, gave them an oil field, and said, if you guys go wreak havoc over there where we tell you to do that and create, a reason for us to invade places and take military action, we'll allow you guys to, have this thing. So they turned it, ISIS is a creation of America under the Obama administration and the CIA and all that shit. Remember ISIS-K when when Joe Biden needed it, right? When Joe Biden was getting out of Afghanistan. So what they do is they create terrorist groups because no one in their right mind goes and punches a fucking lion or a bear or a fucking elephant in the face, right? Like, you don't do shit like that because you get your ass kicked. Nobody goes and sticks their face into a beehive, or something like that because you get stung, right? Nobody's that fucking stupid. And so you have to create opposition when you're fighting somebody who doesn't have a military, or has an inferior military. This was false flag 101. You can watch the movie Princess Bride where they talk about this with this princess of when this guy Prince Humperdinck wants to kill his bride and leave her on the steps of Gelder to make Gelder look like they killed her so he can invade their country, right? It's when you need to be victimized in some way, aka 9/11 or something, so you can go do military action, right? So this is false flag 101. And so when you have an asset like Hamas, they can attack you, and then you have an excuse to go destroy Palestine. And so this argument is for fucking morons. It's for dumb fucks. Anyone with half a brain can see that everything that Hamas did led to what Israel wanted to do all along and has wanted to do for years. And this shackled up piece of shit, Charlie Kirk, is lying to these college kids, right? In the moral, like making it like who's worse, Hamas or Israel? This bullshit.
Justification for the murder and mutilation of thousands of innocent people and children in a futile.
Let's zero in on it.
There is no justification, Mr. Kirk, for invading hospitals, for bombing innocent populations and dragging out a war which is damaging Israel and the West's security.
You've made that point, but
it's not a point, it's a moral truth, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. It was also a moral truth that the war started because 1,300 Jews were killed and 200 were taken hostage. And when you declare war on Israel, expect a firestorm in reaction.
You mean that 600,000 people? How many? So 1,500 Jews is worth 600,000 Palestinian and 20,000 children, right? And that we got to hear about October 7th forever, but there's no day for the fucking genocide that Israel did. So this is why he's a piece of shit, right? because he later on got shackled up. He got shackled. He was whining, oh my God, they're questioning my moral character. They're bullying me. They're bullying me after I took $100 million for them to lie to these college kids, and they're bullying me. Like, well, fuck you guys. Come on, you guys.
Let me finish, I let you talk. Israel, at its holiest day of the calendar year besides Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, Samat Torah, the 50-year anniversary of the Six-Day War.
When they were the aggressors, right? And you know what they did during the Six-Day War? They bombed an American vessel. Why don't you tell them that, Charlie? As long as you're bringing facts. You're bringing facts up.
On Shabbat, Hamas invaded Israel, deciding to go recklessly to music concerts, to homes, to kibbutzes, and taking 200 plus hostages. They knew what they were doing. In one of the most cloistered urban environments on the planet, 2 million people live in a place where it's impossible to wage war. Impossible. Where they wear civilian clothing, they violate every tenet of the Geneva Convention, and the IDF, when they do something right, they get no credit. When they do life-saving surgeries of a Gazan child, they get no credit. When they drop leaflets, they get no credit. But when they happen to bomb a place where they are operating their military from...
Oh my God. So this is his thing, right? And they get no credit. They don't get no credit, but you see how he realized the kind of people he was dealing with at the end, right? Like, you know, he's shackled up. He's getting shekels, hundreds of millions of shekels, to do these Israeli talking points. Israel has, you know, again, what makes more sense? That Hamas was going to do something that would lead to the destruction of the Palestinian country? 80% of the buildings are destroyed, but Hamas is on the side of the Palestinians when they're doing Israeli bidding. It makes no sense at all. And so anybody with a logical mind would know that. But not this piece of shit, right? Not this shackled up piece of shit.
Which we now know from third-party verified sources, hundreds of Hamas military operations are in mosques, schools, and hospitals. I'm sorry, the country where they were living in relative peace on October 6th, that all of a sudden we had a war, and Hamas started the war. And I don't see people that were really upset about the 2 million Germans that were killed in World War II, civilians. A tragic truth of war is that civilians die. I don't like it, and you don't like it. And they brought it upon themselves.
They brought it upon themselves. Why would they do that? Why would they do that when they knew that Israel's going to kick the shit out of them? Now they don't have a fucking country and they're destroyed. Hamas is destroyed. All of Palestine is destroyed. Why the fuck would they do that? Why the fuck would they keep hostages as they're watching babies killed? Because they they don't care about anything else but getting back at Israel? Fuck you, Charlie. You shackled up piece of shit. And how great Israel is. Until they aren't, right, Charlie? Until you criticize them just a little bit. And they take the shekels away from you and they bully you. They're bullying me. They're bullying me. I went out and shielded for them for years. And now they're bullying me. I'm a bully.
The only operation and entity to blame is the leadership of Hamas, not the Israeli government, for fighting this defensive war after they were invaded. There is a good guy and there is a bad guy. I honestly...
Isn't that the morality of a child?
Yeah, but they weren't the good guys when they started criticizing you. When they started questioning your moral character. Then you kind of realize the kind of people you're dealing with, right? It wasn't just like you could just take shekels and say whatever the fuck you wanted. They owned your voice, Charlie, right? They owned your fucking voice. As soon as you stopped taking shekels, as soon as you went against them, you got shackled up, right? Right, bro?
Well, hold on. It's interesting you say that, because a child who knows that Israel is the good guy, Hamas is bad, has a lot more wisdom than a student like yourself at Cambridge University. Let me ask you.
Boom. Exactly. They're from fucking Cambridge. Fucking Cambridge. You got a lot more wisdom than you. Yeah. What happened, Charlie? What happened when you criticized them, bro?
So who ran Gaza up until 2005?
Same thing.
No, Israel did. Israel used to occupy the Gaza Strip.
Yeah. So you want to be occupied. Like, America is a bunch of immature fucking, America isn't filled with great people. There's wonderful people in America, but, what we've done to other countries and just glomming on 20% of the resources, we're not immune from being occupied. You want China to occupy America? You want Russia to occupy America? Iran or whatever, North Korea? What if you had those people, their military on your streets, right? And you can see videos from Israeli citizens who are sympathetic to the Palestinian people watching them beat the shit out of kids, the IDF and just all this shit, right? Because, and these just kids were out there. They took a kid. There's a video out there, and I've showed parts of it here. Back when you really couldn't show this. You probably can show it now. And you can find the video, but it's like an 8 or 9-year-old kid, 10-year-old kid. And somebody threw a rock at Israeli soldiers. There's a comedian who joked, why aren't there more Palestinian baseball players, pitchers? Because they're throwing rocks, right? Because they don't have fucking tanks and they don't have fucking anti-aircraft weaponry. They don't have missiles. They don't have any of that shit. They have to throw rocks. Somebody threw a rock and they grabbed this kid and they're roughing him up. They're slapping him around and they're taking him inside to question him to find out who threw the rock. The kid didn't even throw the rock. He's just trying to go to school because they had to cross through this area, and this area between Palestine and Israel. Like he was going to school on the other side of this fucking wall, and they were taking more and more Palestinian land. And Charlie Kirk won't admit to that shit, right? To this college kid, they're occupying from that reason.
10,000 Jews left Gaza. The IDF totally withdrew. Why did Israel do that?
You tell me, you're the one at the table.
To pursue peace, because they were promised a peace deal if they got out of Gaza.
And
Then Hamas took over as mayor of Gaza, and it's now a hot tub for terrorists.
So you think that they needed Israel said, we'll get out of Gaza if you guys give us a peace deal. Fuck you, Charlie, right? How did that work out for you? How did the peace deal work out for you? How did you become so evil in such a short period of time? Because you hinted at criticizing them, right? Remember, like I showed you, the stuff with Megyn Kelly. Remember, Charlie? Remember? Well, you didn't remember this back then. Remember now.
Where there are thousands of rockets every single month.
where was the peace that happened after they withdrew?
Exactly. Israel signed a peace accord, and the PA violated it.
Oh, they did. Yeah, they did. He gets his talking points. Like these guys are all saying he would write to them, and they would give him talking points. These are bullshit Israeli talking points, and he would just put them out there in a way where he's the knower. He's sitting there holding court, and these dopey college kids, these dumb fucks, are coming up, right? And they don't have a chance to debate a guy who's got a $100 million organization behind him, but he's full of shit. This stuff is none of it's true, right? This is Charlie Shekels. This is back when he was sheckled up, right before he got sheckled himself.
So this is the way peace.
Occupying territory.
They weren't occupying. They got out.
But you just said Israel occupied that territory.
Correct.
In Gaza until they got out. So that's not.
No, but they got out on a condition of peace. So they said
We don't, but why don't you talk about the occupying of territory? Why don't you talk about the 6-day war that Israel claimed to be the victim, but then came out that they were the aggressor, and where American was bringing in a ship with big satellites on it to find out what's going on. They decided to sink it, but they didn't. They hit it with a fucking torpedo and it didn't fucking sink. And then they bombed the shit out of it. And they, all these American soldiers hate them. And these American soldiers had to have been hidden away because Lyndon Baines Johnson was scared shitless because Israel was part of the fucking assassination of JFK. So he had his nutsack. Like he said, scramble all the jets. When he thought that it was Egypt that was bombing the ship because they were in war with these various countries, right? And they were expanding their territory, Israel, with American weaponry. And they had this negotiation afterwards. You can watch this documentary on Al Jazeera about USS Liberty. And this motherfucker ain't talking about it, right? Because, he's been shackled up. He's only talks about Israeli talking points. And all these soldiers felt like they were like the shame of America because they buried these guys and didn't want them telling what happened. And they made a deal where Israel gave compensation of $6 million, $1 for every Jew killed in the Holocaust. Like what a dick fucking move that was, right? And Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ, was he was scared shitless, and he realized that one of his cabinet members was leaking information to Israel. Like he had a mole in his fucking cabinet spying on him. That's what it's like to deal with this country. They take your money and they use it to bribe your politicians and silence you, bully you, right, Charlie? Remember you were bullied? Remember how you got bullied by these people that you thought you were friends? What do you think they do to the Palestinian people who are on land that they think belongs to them? Right?
We'll get our 10,000 Jews out of Gaza. So 10,000 Jews used to live in Gaza.
Failed to like recognize that they were occupying someone's territory, and that's
Well, so who is Gaza's territory? Whose is that?
it's Palestinian.
Egypt. It's been Egypt for 2,000 years. Okay. So so since you understand this,
Oh, so you're going to give it back to Egypt? Why don't you give it back to Egypt, and the Palestinian can be part of that country? Like it's not. It's the Palestinian people. This place was called Palestine. England basically owned this. It was one of their, British Commonwealth, and they call it Palestine. There's Palestinian people there, and there was a small amount of Jews there, and they airlifted a bunch in there to get the numbers up, so the UN would give them more land. They got the best land, other than Gaza. They got most of the beachfront property. They got the better land, and then they started to get more land, and they used American money and manipulation of the American people, American government, to take billions of dollars and turn it into a military. Every Israeli citizen has to become part of the IDF, a part of the Israeli Defense Force. I mean, it's a militarized country, and they're all about fucking glomming as much land as possible and becoming a superpower there. They want resources. They want oil fields. They want all that shit. And they're doing it on, as America crumbles, they're trying to get what they can before America crumbles. Because once America's gone, they're on their fucking own. And you were shackled up, right? This guy got shackled up. He's a lying piece of shit. He was a lying piece of shit. And so, there's nothing there. He's not a good person. He's not a spiritual person. He has no conscience. There's no empathy for the Palestinian people. And he found out. Like, he said the same thing. He got bullied the same way the Palestinian did, but not the same way, because he got bullied. They said some mean things about him. They bombed the shit out of this country and destroyed 80% of it. And, finally, after all these Republicans started to turn on Israel, he started to, waver on his support. And all his contemporaries like Tucker Carlson, these other people that he respected, started to, they had shared an audience. And all of his followers were starting to learn from Tucker and Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens about what a piece of shit country Israel is. They started turning on it. And he realized he was all shackled up. He was going to look like a fucking complete asshole. And he started to, change his tune a little bit. And he attacked his character, and he whined like a little fucking bitch. And he said he was being bullied, right? And so, yeah, he's a piece of shit, right? Regardless of what happened to him or what didn't happen to him, it doesn't matter. Like, he lived a shitty life, right? He took money from a foreign government and undermined the American government because it's a parasitic relationship. And he worked for this foreign government. And he's supposed to be a patriot. He's supposed to be a Christian. He's undermining both of those things by taking money and lying to college kids, by repeating talking points given to them by this parasitic country. So fuck this guy, right? Okay, so I shouldn't have to say this, but I will anyway, because, for my normal viewers, I mean, most of you guys would agree with my assessment, even before I presented all this stuff that I did. I might get some wandering Charlie Kirk people in and, whatever. But, the guy sold out his country, sold out his religion to a foreign government, foreign country that turned on him, right, and was bullying him at the end. Maybe if he's legitimately dead, they killed him. Like, they're top suspect, right? And so, if they killed 600,000 Palestinians, and they're able to do all of whatever they've been able to do based in their relationship with America. And if Charlie Kirk was because of his turned attitude towards them, if he turned on them, and that would have been, death knell to their relationship, they would have lost all the youth. They've already lost the liberal youth, and then all these kids that Charlie Kirk bullied, and all the Republicans that were with them. And, if it came out that they killed him, Jesus Christ. So there's all those things. And so this is, a real piece of shit, right? I was trying to save my last voiceover as POS, and it was like, you already have that, I've already saved that. But, this is a comedy channel, and I'm light about these things. But, people do stupid and horrible things. And he did a horrible thing, by taking Israeli money to go to college campuses and present their bullshit talking points. And no matter, you identify with the guy, you like the guy, whatever your opinion is, you're finding out like he's a piece of shit. Like everything I said here, could be factored in. Like, why didn't he talk about the sinking of the USS Liberty, or that Israel stole nuclear secrets to make their nuclear program? I mean, they were spying on America all the time. Israel and Mossad is constantly spying. I mean, they were talking about Jeffrey Epstein being a Mossad agent who was out there abusing young American girls and then using that against people like Trump and all of his clients, all these people, his so-called friends, to, leverage positions against him and feed information to Mossad and leverage things for them. I mean, think about fucking how horrible that is. And it's supposed to be our friend? What do they do for us other than take our money, spy on us, steal shit from us, right? Blow up our ships. I mean, all like fucking horrible, right? They're horrible. And, not that America's great or we're better. It just, we have our own bloody history, our own skeletons. Like, it's humanity. But to pretend that this country that's committing a genocide is the victim is just, it's enough. And we're tired of it. Like, America is tired of it. And now that everyone can speak up and tell the truth, I mean, it's which has been suppressed for so long by the powers that be, it's a good thing. But Charlie Kirk was certainly not a hero, certainly not a person to look up to, and he lived a bad life doing bad things. Right? This was, he's a part. These guys are thugs and evil fucking people that he was working for, and it's like taking money from it's worse than the mob, right? Like the kind of shit that they were doing, and the kind of like scams that they're running on the American people, and the people in that region, the way they're treating the Palestinian people. But everyone should know that by now. Anyways, let's move on here. So I just had some more thoughts about this guy and the whole work that they were doing over there. I hesitate to call it work. It's propaganda, where you're doing propaganda for another country. I like to keep it light in terms of the stuff I do here in my content and also how I experience things. Because if you really get emotionally involved with all the bullshit that's going out in the world, you'd be angry all the time or whatever, some negative feelings, right? It would infect you in some way. And, it's just the internet and the whole, whatever, social media, all these things. People are just talking shit, and for the most part, it doesn't really affect anybody because people are locked into their beliefs. And like I often say, you can't change the system. Like, the system's going down anyway. Like, that's not preventable. So it's not like people are going to destroy the world or, it's a cesspit, and, it's just like you're throwing more shit in the, you're throwing more, whatever it is, gross stuff, more deception, more lies, more manipulation into a sea of, depravity, right? But the stuff at Turning Point is a little bit more nefarious than that, right? So the first part is Israel is a welfare state. They don't have their own way of supporting themselves. Like, they can't make enough money and they can't fund the military they need. I mean, they're put in a sea of people that hate them. It's a, falsely created country, right? Where they took a country that belonged to somebody else, the Palestinians. It was really owned by England in a fucked up way, right? So it wasn't even like a legitimate state. That's why Palestine isn't a member state in the UN, because they weren't even their own owner of their own country, right? So it was pressured by the Rothschilds family, and I don't know how the UN played a role in it. But they divided it up into a weird country where, the Palestinians were split up into two different regions, and those regions were dwindling over time. As the Jewish people, the Israelis, were taking more and more of the land. They became a member state in the United Nations and a legitimized, this is why they have this two-state solution, right? But around them are a lot of people that don't like them, Muslim people, for, historical reasons and recent reasons. And so they need a very strong military, and they have no way to provide for it. They don't have oil. They don't have some resources. They have pretty much next to nothing other than America. And what they have is dual citizenship. They have people who make money in America who are, rich, wealthy people, Jewish people who give them money, right? And who are funneling money and creating a propaganda stream through Hollywood and these other places about Israel, and then they, bought these politicians and are getting basically a welfare dole, welfare payments from America that comes in many forms. And so since they're not sustainable, I mean, it's a very dysfunctional relationship. They've leached on like a parasite, and they have to do whatever they can to keep that from being acknowledged by a country that's kind of aggressive and doesn't like that shit, right? And they're kind of dickish about it on top of it. So they've got shills all over the country in all these different capacities that are pushing for this future relationship, and they're selling this to kids like a dysfunctional relationship. You take an adult like Charlie Kirk, is supposed to be a man of God, of course he isn't, and he's going to these college campuses. All these colleges are being pushed to give up their free speech because of Israeli pressure and Trump being owned by this nefarious government, and he's convincing these people to vote for Trump, who's a complete sellout, a complete piece of shit. And again, it's not like Kamala Harris was any better. But then to be selling this relationship to future generations, and when he figured it out, the way they treated him, and he felt like he was being bullied, in a minor way compared to what they're doing to the Palestinian people, right? So it's a very toxic situation. And like I said, the system is going to collapse, and there's real shit that's going to go down that's beyond, blaming any one country or any, whatever it is. But this is a fucked up thing to do, right? It's when you purposefully are indoctrinating and doing a propaganda campaign with the youth of America, and dressing it up like you're a spiritual person, and this has something to do with God. Like it fucking has zero to do with God. I mean, it's the opposite, right? If anything, it has to do with what people would think about the devil, like it's an egotistical pursuit, and it's full of lies and fucking deception and just double dealing and the rest of it. And it's using force and manipulation. A lot of force is being used. A lot of blackmail, bribes, and fear, and of getting canceled or accused of something. All the things that they've done, like accusing you of being basically a racist, anti-Semite. If all this stuff, it's just icky, right? Sajmark system. There's no force. You don't use force. People have to come and by their own volition, by their own choice. Like if you have something good, you don't have to sell it. You don't have to hard sell it. Like this is a dysfunctional relationship. It's an abusive relationship. It's a parasitic relationship. And so, you have to sell it. Like you have to use a lot of manipulation and force, bribes, and same thing with religion. And so that's where it just gets icky, right? It's not something that naturally would, the American people would want. Like we don't want to take on a fucking welfare state, right? And if Israel doesn't have America, they can't exist. I mean, you got it to where politicians are saying, Israel doesn't need us, we need Israel, and you go to hell like this. That was Lindsey Graham said that we'll go to hell. God will strike us down if we don't support Israel. The closeted gay dude. And Nikki Haley during the presidential run said that we don't need Israel. Israel doesn't need us. We need them. So just really just bizarre shit, right? Years ago, my brother was dating this woman, and she was a Christian, and they were working together, and it's not a great relationship. My brother's kind of a womanizer, and she was thinking about doing the meditation, and my brother invited me over. We started at the same time, and my brother read all the books that I did, and she was having some reservation because she was a Christian, and she worried that if she did this system, she'd go to hell, right? And, I didn't really fully understand that. It took me a while to understand, really, until I started making these videos and all these John 3:16 people started to comment. Then I remember my mom saying, that those Ottawa Indians, she didn't see them going to hell, and of course they're not, right? Like it was silly to me to think that was the case, and the fact that was, biblical teaching was fucked. Like even as a, young kid, I knew that was fucked up. And my mom was struggling with it because she could see, as a Catholic and a devout, Catholic woman, she was struggling with that. And so, like, my brother says to me at one point, he says, like, he gets all intense. My brother's 17 years older than me. And he's, a very intense person, but he gets all intense. He goes, Paul, she thinks that if she does it, she's going to hell. Do you know what that means to her? Because I was talking about Sajmark, and I'm like, what the fuck are you even talking about, bro? Like, I'm not the one who's trying to force her into, you're the one who's, wants her to do this thing. Like, I don't care if she does it or not. Like, she's and if he knew the system or he trusted the system, of course he couldn't feel the transmission. He would know that that's bullshit. Like, I knew, I was much more in tune with God after my first initial sittings. I had a much deeper relationship with God. It like was it was like St. Paul and the ride to Damascus. Like it was that kind of, Saul. It was that kind of a thing, right? Where I had this transformational experience, and I knew this thing delivered God in a way that religions don't. And so, like, I knew that was all bullshit, but I'm like, it's her choice. Like, she's, people are going to do it or not, and it's not based on anything you're going to coerce them into just because whatever reason he wanted her to do it, right? The way my brother said it to me is like, I'm the one who's trying to drag her into this thing. I'm like, I don't care. And so years later, like my brother just, didn't treat her right, and he had the opportunity to marry her and didn't, and it was the whole thing. I've told this story in the Journey series. And they kind of had broken up, and I saw my brother in India, and she showed up, and she accosted me at 2 a.m. and started telling me what a piece of shit my brother was, and all these stories. And I'm like, why, why, like, don't you realize, like, he didn't, he's not good for you. Like, I mean, what do you think? Like, what kind of person do you think he is? You have enough information. Like, all the things you're telling me is, why would you want to pursue? Like, you've followed him all the way to India, not to go and do this meditation thing. I mean, it's like probably 10 or 15 years after that whole conversation happened. And I'm like, why are you like, I mean, and plus she was like probably, a few years older than me. So he was like 15 years old. I'm like, you just get out with it. Getting's good. Like, what are you doing with your life, right? But anyways, Charlie Kirk is a certain piece of shit because of the, and also the genocide that happened in Palestine. Because, like, it's just, you don't want to be in the, when you talk about things here, everybody talks shit, and you can make mistakes, you can get emotional, you can be blinded by your whatever it is, like your group of people, and you can not see things correctly. It really doesn't happen to me very much because I don't care about this stuff. But you don't want to be on the wrong side of a genocide. You don't want to be talking about what the, they're just wiping out a whole country. They're glomming onto it in, a very parasitic, evil kind of way, right? I mean, it's evil what's happening there. And you're on the side of evil and you're trying to sell it to kids. Like, it's a fucked up thing to do. And, receiving money to do that on top of it, it's just really greasy. Anyways, you guys get the idea. Let's move on to the other stuff here. Okay. So I didn't talk to my wife about, like, she had a general sense of what was going on with this video last night. Today is Saturday, October 11th. A little bit groggy. But she sent me this last night. Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore was still pushing Trump. He didn't call out the bullshit fake assassination attempt, but, he seems like a solid truther. But, that's a fucking big fail. But that's neither here nor there. But he says only Satan would continue to defend this. Israel has dropped 200 tons of explosives on Gaza since October 7th, equivalent to nearly 13 Hiroshima bombs. So, again, I can't fact check it, but I mean, it sounds about right. And remember, we're paying for all this shit. Like, they don't have an income. They don't have, right now their shekel is devalued, right? Internationally, they're shit. They don't have a source of economy. They don't have like an oil or a commodity, right? They don't have anything there. They're a welfare state that has to survive off of American dollars, right? They need to convert the dollars into shekels and then shekel people up like Charlie Kirk. But here it shows. So this shows these are all the buildings and the place beforehand, and then this is what it looks like now. So you see what a fucking disaster that is. Just wiped clean, right? Just a mess, like just a nightmare. And I mean, it's just right there in front of anybody. And probably every one of you thinks this way, except for Charlie Shekels. Charlie Shekels was advocating for this, right? He's hooked up with the Pharisees. Benjamin Netanyahu is the Pharisees. They're not Jesus, right? Jesus wouldn't be about this. This is not, any religious, spiritual person would not be about this. His wife, the full turning point. They're not, Trump. I mean, anybody. There's a video that surfaced. Let me see if I can find it. I'm sure I can find it because I watched it last night. But, this is horrific, right? And so, like, again, this just came to me. Like, I was thinking about this. There's been times I've made videos about a certain subject. Like, I made videos of celebrity deaths. And more information would just leak out. These blood sacrifices, Prince, and things like this. And then the movie came out, the documentary came out about Michael Jackson and those two guys who he abused when they were kids. One of them was like his boyfriend, but they were both kind of like that. One of them became a famous dancer, and he was the guy that, he was a dance instructor. He was on that show. So you think you could dance, like he was a choreographer. Like they were not like, it was one kid that has a picture with Michael Jackson constantly. It was obviously they were telling the truth, right? Bad. And Michael Jackson's fans kept on coming to my channel and, talking shit about it, because they just wouldn't let it go. I mean, the guy was, Michael Jackson was talking about how he's like to sleep in the same bed as boys. He'd have these kids come over his house. They were like between the ages of 4 and, 12, 13 years old. And they would sleep in his bed with him. He was defending it in an interview, right? The guy was, weird, creep, whatever it was. But I made all these videos. And there's a time where, like, I'm just over it. Like, I'm done with the subject, but it isn't done with me, right? And the thing with Charlie Kirk, there's when new information comes out, it'll come out. And there'll be whatever it is with, Erika and that stuff, her 666 thing. And I'll keep on checking in on that. But I don't, there's nothing more to see here. They're going to convict this kid. Trump is, we're going to have to rebuild this place, the Gaza Strip. Israel doesn't have any fucking money, right? They can't fucking do that. That costs, trillions of dollars. This, Gaza Strip is going to be a real estate project, which Trump is all about it. Here's the ocean right here, right? It's a nice, beautiful Mediterranean Ocean. And they're going to be like that whole thing. You've even seen the plans that Trump is, somebody made like a spoof video and Trump used it on Instaghoul. But, it's like a horrific thing that's happened. The whole thing, right in front of everybody. And it's right out there now. Like everyone should kind of get a sense of what Israel has done in terms of its relationship with America. And America sucks. Like America's done horrific things all over the world. Like I can't say America is better than Israel. But there's something about Israel, and there's a like the biblical aspect of it. There's a darkness there. There's kind of an evil there. The whole thing, the Old Testament and all that shit. People don't want to see it. They don't want to see it. But it's like I said, the Old Testament is the being referred to as God in the Old Testament is not God. It's a demonic person. It's it's not the. It's like a demon and not God, whatever you want to call it. Like, that's not how God behaves, right? The way that God is depicted in the Old Testament is why this kind of shit goes on. And that, they believe that they're somehow special and that this is okay to do to other people. And because of that, there has been this stuff that's happened. And now they've got these evangelical Christians, Charlie Kirk people, that are backing this. It's the opposite of being a godly person. Not that God isn't, wars happen, and destruction happen, consequences happen. People die. That's all part of life, right? But the lies and the manipulation, they're just the talking points, like Charlie Shekels Kirk getting his talking points from, Jewish leaders about this, the bullshit stuff going on here. Like when anybody can kind of see, this is, it's right there in front of you, right? You see what's happening here. Like this has happened. They've dropped all these bombs and they're, they've destroyed this place. That's the first thing. They've leveled the place, and now they got to rebuild it. And then they want to depopulate. Charlie Shekels Kirk was talking about, these people go into other countries and neighboring countries. Like, they should take those refugees in, but he's totally against, the whole, immigration, right? And so there it is. Wow, there it is. 666 posts she did it. And the picture of those two guys together, here they are.
Army of freedom fighters. We're going to be around for the next 100, 200 years because we know in the end our ideas will win.
Yeah, they will, like destroying Israel, destroying the Palestinian people and murdering babies. Those are your ideas, Charlie? Martial law with Trump, those are your ideas. There's no linear blueprint for grief. One day you're collapsed on the floor crying out the name of Jesus and taking videos of it, his coffin. I added that part. In between labored breaths. The next you're playing with your children in the living room, surrounded by family photos, and feeling a rush of something you can only attempt to define as divinely planted in bittersweet joy as your smile breaks through on your face. Yeah, that was like immediately after he died. You were laughing and giggling and doing those things. They say time heals, but love doesn't ask to be healed. Love asks to be remembered. It's humbling to realize that this magnitude of suffering didn't steal my love for my husband. It amplified it. It crystallized it. I carry my Charlie in every breath, in every single ache, in every single quiet of the day living as I attempt to relearn what rhythm will be. And when I realize that these past 30 days is the greater suffering, the purer the love, and I've never loved more than I do now. Like, there's just love just emanating out of her. And boom.
Massive crowds gathering for an emotional scene in Arizona to honor and pay their final
Yeah, remember that piece of shit thing? That was that gaudy fucking pretentious thing they did, and the hate that was exuded by some of the people. Stephen Miller, and talking about the evil liberals and all that shit that they did. They're fucking, a part of a genocide going on.
respects to Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirks. Charlie Kirks is there.
The memorial drawing one of the largest public turnouts ever.
Public turnout. It was amazing how many people turned out for this fucking piece of shit, this shackled up motherfucker, right?
A private citizen.
I have to say this without getting emotional, but I'm very proud of my husband. More than anything, Charlie wanted to do not his will, but God's will.
Exactly, God's will. It was God's will for people for Israel to go and murder all those Palestinian people. It's God's will that there's martial law out there, that martial law is happening because of unnecessarily just being brought in by this piece of shit Trump, who is running what's left of this country into the ground. It's God's will, right? And it is God's will because God wants this piece of shit country destroyed. And but it's not a faith, family, freedom thing, right? This bullshit stuff he's up. It's God's will that nobody watches your fucking Turning Point shit anymore because they've all gone and selling out and backing an official story that nobody fucking believes, right?
There was no keeping score between us. We were a
Yeah, why would there be?
team, working together for the same mission.
There they are.
Charlie's life was a turning point for this country. It was a miracle.
He's a miracle. The guy was a fucking miracle. He sheckled up, took $100 million worth of shekels to convince college students that they're wrong about the genocide they were all witnessing, right?
Let that miracle that was Charlie's life be your turning point as well.
God should be the most important thing in your life. But then beyond that, it's getting married, having children, building families.
Exactly.
Leaving a legacy, doing big.
And just filming all these little interactions on camera so everyone can see what a great guy you are. See, imaginary family.
And great things.
Boom.
I love you so much.
I love you.
You're my best friend.
Boom. This is
I'm so inspired. This army of freedom fighters, we're going to be
the army of freedom fighters.
around for the next 100, 200 years because we know in the end our ideas will win.
Our ideas will win in those 100 years from now.
Massive crowds gathering for an emotional scene in Arizona to honor and pay.
Okay, so that's it. All right. Your fucking movement is in the shitter right now. You have to come out and It's on his thing too. It's not. It's his. He has 3,972 posts, and she has 666. That was the piece of shit 666 post. Numbers happen. I don't give a shit about that, but it's funny as fuck. And this thing is a joke. This whole thing. Turning point is, again, he's working for the Pharisees. He's a Judas, right? Like he's not a, he's not a, he's on the opposite side of what Christ would be on, and that's proved me wrong, right? Okay, so this was it actually came up on Twitter, so I had to find the YouTube version, but this is again with the music. The guy's singing. This is what he's writing. I'm going to turn off because again, I'll get copyrighted. They're praying over him. Family, please bless his precious wife and children and grandchildren. Give him strength. Give him something. I couldn't see that word. I know he is probably a little tired in the body, if that's possible for him. But God, I would pray you would renew his strength like an eagle. Like a fucking eagle. This bullshit prayers, right? Like, I don't know how to fucking pray right. This is not how you pray. This is it's Turning Point USA. This is Charlie Kirk got all these pastors, these bullshit pastors out here, putting their hands on him and praying this fucking bullshit thing they do. You don't need to do any of that. It's not a physical thing. God isn't physical. You don't need to, this whole thing. Trump is a demonic piece of shit, like horrible fucking narcissistic, fake Christian. Can't even say what his favorite quote from the Bible is because he hasn't read it. It's his favorite book he's never read. There's nothing godly about this guy. He is doing godly work, destroying a country that needs to be destroyed. But other than that, and look at here, he comes down the hall with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is telling him what's up. Look at Charlie Kirk talking. Look at these two shackled up motherfuckers. They're both shackled. They're shackled to the max. You could be total shackled up, talking about stuff. How they're working for Israel. Then he comes in. They've got all these pastors ready to pray for him, and they're woo! Look at them all applauding him like he's this bullshit motherfucker. It's an abomination, right? This is the opposite of godly. This is, just fucking grossness, and it's in all its glory. Just totally icky. So this is Miss Erika J. Kirk, steadfast in faith, social entrepreneur, proclaims streetwear. Gotta get your merch in there. Midweek Rise Up Podcast Bible 365, formerly Erika Franza. So here's her post from here. Let's check out the comments. I got this little puppy 2 days after Charlie died. I hope you don't mind, but I named him Charlie Kirk just so you could ask his name. I tell them hopefully have a discussion about Charlie Kirk. It's Magalisa. There he is. Holy shit. Check AI assistance on this post. Does this writing compare with other Erika writings? Anything anomalous? Does Erika have an absolute right to Utah to have an independent autopsy of Kirk? Yes. Some eyes as to why she has not requested an independent autopsy. So that's AI creates code in seconds. Verify if it takes too long. Automate code. Review with Sonar. I guess that's an ad here. I'm so sorry for your loss. I think about him every day. And there's other ones here. You and your children have been in my prayers. God bless you, Erika. I wonder if they're deleting. Okay, so my wife saw this before I did. She doesn't subscribe to Erika Kirk, but Twitter recommended it. And she didn't know about the she knew the 666 thing, but she didn't know it was whatever. But she looked at the comments, and there were so many comments that were critical. Like most of the comments, or at least half of them. And now they've all been deleted. So, which is okay. I don't care if they do that or not, but that's not what they're about, right? Read every email and they're trying to pretend that there's 100% support for her. And they are, there clearly isn't. And it isn't just people who are on the left or people that don't like them. It's people who are Turning Point people. And they've turned on her, right? Okay, so this is Turning Point USA, right? I mean, with everything that I've said here, which is true, like you'd have to be oblivious to truth to not, it's not a matter of agreeing with me. This is what's happened, right? There's a genocide that happened. It's not just, the genocide. It's the evil and the lies and the manipulation, right? I mean, just not with Palestine, but everything to do with Trump. Like, Trump has completely gone against what he promised and who he pretended to be, because he was never that guy. He's not a godly person. He's not really a Republican, and he's all about himself. They had this bracelet thing. I X'd out of it, and it's not coming back. But here it is. You can donate here. The fight continues. You can donate here to the family, and you can donate over here. So, and then you can merch up with all this stuff. Paint the Town Red. His birthday's coming up. Maybe it was today. Yeah, it was yesterday. And then up, they have here. She's gotten $2.5 million. They got another $100,000 since I looked the last time. Things are slowing down for her. These are people who are donating who may or may not have enough money for themselves, right? They might be living paycheck to paycheck, many of them, donating to her and the family. They have a $100 million business. She had a $5 to $6 million home, another home in Florida. And then, all the stuff that they had. And they are financially set, but she needs another $2 million, $2.5 million, because they've been desheckled. Charlie desheckled them, but they're trying to reshekel, but no one wants to give them shekels now that the whole thing is toppled with Israel. And so, just obscene, right? Just fucking obscene. Okay, so YouTube recommended this.
Charlie? I live like a capitalist every single day, Shank. I live as a capitalist, okay? I live when I believe.
No. Hold on.
What's my salary? Hold on.
There's
Charlie, take a seat.
Come on, Shank, let's go.
Charlie, take a seat.
I practice what I preach, Shank.
Charlie.
You do not practice what you preach.
Look, there's a transgender person there.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Shank. I live.
Boom. So YouTube recommended that. I found a longer version here. So here, the guy he's yelling at is Shank, whatever his name is, from it's spelled Cenk, but I think they pronounce it Jank, and I can't pronounce his last name. From the Young Turks, right? So he's yelling at.
Okay, you're trying to attack me, which is ridiculous, like asking me what my salary is. Sure, I'll reveal it willingly.
You brought it up in context. I'm asking, why don't
hold
you live
on,
like a
hold on,
socialist?
hold on.
Okay. Go live like a
The point is
socialist.
larger. The point is larger than that, Charlie.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Shank. I live as a capitalist, okay?
He lives like a capitalist. He's going a little bit Alex Jones. This guy's laughing. Shank stands up in the audience, which you can see. We can't see it here. But, Jesus wasn't a capitalist, right? Jesus didn't take shekels. Jesus didn't work for the Pharisees. Right? If you're a bad Christian, like, there's nothing worse than being a bullshit Christian, right? I mean, just a good Christian, you can be shitty, go along with bullshit things in the Bible. But he is a capitalist, right? He's a capitalist, $100 million a year capitalist, getting hundreds of millions of dollars from Israel over the years, from Shekels, Charlie Shekels.
I live what I believe. No. What do? I get charity every single year.
Hold on.
He gives charity every single year. He does. Fucking charity. He gives charity. He gives charity. He gets $100 million from Israel and his donors, hitting up his, hardworking supporters for money, and he's getting tons of it so he can back that piece of shit Trump. And he gives charity back. He gives a percentage of the money back to charity. He does. This guy. He's a charitable person.
Charlie, less than his.
Charlie, take a seat.
Come on, Shank, let's go.
Come on, Shank, let's go.
Take a seat. Take a seat. All right, no. Take a seat. You're gonna take a seat. You're gonna take a seat over here.
Oh my God.
What's my salary?
All right.
Oh, ridiculous. All right, behave.
He lost his shit there, right? So let's do it, Alex. He did a little what Alex Jones there. This guy's talking here, and he goes, why don't you just be a socialist? Why don't you just be a socialist? I'm a capitalist. I'm a capitalist. I give charity, small percentage. But I still give charity. I'm a capitalist, Shank. I take shekels. I take shekels whenever I can. I promote a genocide with shekels. That's capitalist, Shank. Join the Shekel Club. Sit down and join the Shekel Club. We're all in it. Everyone up on this stage. Give money. Give shekels to my wife. She's going to be de-sheckled pretty soon. She's crazy. And she needs shekels. We all need shekels.
This is a human. This is what we look like. This is what we act like. This is what everybody was like before us. This is what I am. I'm a throwback. I'm here. I've got the fire of human liberty. I'm setting fires everywhere.
This is a shill. This is what we look like. This is what we act like. This is how you make $165 million. I'm COINTELPRO. I work for the CIA. I'm cutting you out of your money. I'm cutting you out of your money everywhere. We're at war. I've declared bankruptcy. I'm broke. I need your help right now. My body's full of cholesterol, and there's a strange growth on my scrotum. There's only one way to fight this madness, to win this war. You need to buy my products, and you need to do it now before my head explodes. My blood pressure is too high. I'm on the verge of being thrown out by Illuminati, and they've canceled my gym membership, and I need your money and your support now. I just made a stinky. Roger. Okay, so this was for Morning Joe. I was eating breakfast, and this came on. And they're talking about Jewish people no longer supporting Netanyahu and Israel and the war. A little too late here, but, it's happened. Some of them were not supporting it from the beginning, right? But either way. But this shows you where we're at, right, as a world and a country.
Trump said talks were proceeding rapidly and that yesterday's meetings involved clarifying what he called final details.
You might remember when this first came out, he met with Netanyahu. They had a joint press conference, and he said it was just bad luck. The Palestinian people, it's just bad luck. They need to get out of that country. It's nothing. It's just been bad luck for them for years. And this is what this piece of shit said, right? Move fast. And this is the other part of Charlie Kirk being a piece of shit. It's his support of Israel, but also his support of Trump, who Trump is also owned by Israel, right? Move fast. I will continue to monitor this centuries-old conflict. Time is of the essence of this massive bloodshed will follow, something that nobody wants to see. Yeah, if you didn't want to see it, you would have stopped it. You could have stopped it years ago. You could have said, he could have stopped it his first term. Any president could. It'd be difficult because the Congress and everyone else is shackled up. But go in there and say, we're not going to give you a fucking cent, right? Because Israel's a welfare state. They can't survive without American input. And so you have total control over it. But Netanyahu's out there bragging about how he owns Trump and he owns America. Like he's been doing that for a while. That's one of his selling points, that he can manipulate the Americans to give him whatever he wants. That's his big thing. And he owns Trump, right? Trump's a taint licker. But you don't get to call this peace. You don't get to call this like an end to the bloodshed, like if you destroyed the country. They're going to displace whatever's left of the 2 million people that were there, 2.5 million people, whatever's left of them. They're displaced. They can't live there, right? They can't, there's no place for them to live. There's no infrastructure. There's no food and water. It has to be rebuilt and on an American dime, right? And so, fuck these guys, right?
As I said yesterday, what I'm hearing from the White House, Netanyahu seems boxed in by Donald Trump, boxed in by Americans, and increasingly by his own people. And there's a poll that came out yesterday that showed that.
Gonna get to that, yeah.
Shut up, Joe, right? This is supposed to be Joe's show, Morning Joe. But it's really like Mika's, it's Gumby Joe and Mika squeezing his nuts. We're going to get to that, Joe. But don't pretend like they've got Netanyahu boxed in. He got done what they needed him to get done, which was the destruction phase, the demolition phase of Palestine. That's accomplished. So there's no, oh my God, we're bringing this thing to an end. No, it's already over, right?
Meanwhile, a new poll finds that 2/3 of Israelis say the time has come to end the war in Gaza. The latest poll by the Israel Democracy Institute finds that 66% of Israelis say the time has come to end the war in Gaza, up 13 points from 1 year ago. That's compared to 27% who say that the time has not yet come.
So for the 66%, which is an interesting number, it's a little bit late, right? But for the 27%, holy shit. Like, what more do you want, right? Like, you haven't killed every single Palestinian? I mean, this is the kind of fucking country we're dealing with. I mean, yeah, it's, you know, what more is there to do? There's only 20% of the buildings are left. You know, and those have to be brought down one way or another. They're still bombing, right, even now. They're still fucking doing more demolition. You know, there's no place for these people to live. It's already fucked. You won already. Jesus Christ.
The main reason Israelis say the war should end is the endangerment of the hostages, followed by those who say the economic and social damage is too great.
I mean, nothing about the Palestinian people. The number one reason is their fucking bullshit hostage thing, which Hamas is their asset, right? Of course, they don't know that. Economic and social damage, because they're starting to suffer economic issues. They're bonds that states are buying. I talked about how, you know, I showed you that Florida, and I think it was it Arkansas or Alabama, one of those states, had bought millions, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Israeli bonds, and now those bonds aren't secured because the shekel is collapsing. The shekel is worthless. Accomplished what was possible, deteriorates international standing, only 7%. Like, that's how little they care about the fact that everybody fucking hates them, that everybody in the world is turned against them, all these countries, all these people, American public. That's how little they care for you. You know, they'll stab you in the back like they did with Charlie Shekels. Once America cuts them free with the, you know, once we say, all right, we're not giving you any more money, they'll stab you in the fucking back and turn on you, sell these politicians and whatever it is. I mean, because that's how little they care about the Goy and other people's opinions.
64% think Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu should take responsibility for the October 7th attack and resign, with 45% saying he should do so immediately and 19% saying he should do so after the war. And that is one of the issues here, is Netanyahu's leadership.
Yes, and Willie, I'll go ahead and say it so John Meacham doesn't have to. Abraham Lincoln said, with public opinion, anything's possible. Without it, nothing is. Well, right now, Benjamin Netanyahu does not have 2/3 of the Israeli people on his side. They want the war to end.
You know, I mean, and that's another way they're shitty, because he did the shit they needed him to do. Like, he destroyed Gaza, so now they can occupy it. But Israel's economy's tanking, and, you know, there's all the issues with it, so they're like, fuck that guy, right? It just goes to show you, right?
They say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. This seems to be rhyming a good deal with the United States after 9/11. We had the world on our side, just like Israel had the world on its side after October 7th. We were seen as overreaching. Benjamin Netanyahu seen as overreaching.
So when they have these events, it's always these probably staged false flag events that are, I'm saying probably, but to me there's definitely, but, it's not provable. I can't prove it. There's evidence out there, but, all the things they talk about. But when they have these events, it's always a bully who wants something from, the bullied, right? A potential bullied. So America wants stuff from the Middle East. Israel wants Gaza, whatever. Gaza's not stupid enough, and the Middle East isn't stupid enough to attack the United States because they know the United States wants to come and steal their shit, right? Or they know that Israel wants to steal their shit, their land, and whatever else. And they know they don't have an army. They don't have a chance against them. And so there's these events that create a victim consciousness, I think most of you guys understand this already. And then that victim consciousness, it's got a shelf life. Like, how much do you get to do? You get to go into Libya? What do they have to do with the 9/11, right? Like, you get to destroy Gaddafi? What the fuck was that, right? That was when I was really like, this is so fucked. And when they went in, and Gaddafi was doing a great job for his country, and he had given up his weapons of mass destruction, all those things. His country was flourishing. He was not a threat. And they just went in and fucked that guy because they just overreached, right? And there's a point where people are like, oh my God, you guys are really fucking, it's not proportional, right? Even if you believe the event is real, which they aren't usually, allegedly, it's just they push it too far, right? They see how much they can get out of the victim consciousness.
And even in America, among Jewish Americans, the numbers are just striking. The condemnation of Benjamin Netanyahu, I think, well over 60%. Netanyahu's leadership of Israel down 32%. But then American Jews are asked if Benjamin Netanyahu has committed war crimes against Palestinians. 61% in America. Only 29% of Jewish Americans say he has not committed war crimes. And almost 4 in 10 Jewish Americans say Netanyahu has committed, his policies have amounted to genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. The White House sees these numbers.
That you would need public opinion to tell you this shit is wrong. I mean, it's just so sick. But, I mean, you have Jewish people here. Let them finish up here.
Sees these numbers. This is not like, anti-Semitism. Nobody can squawk that it's anti-Semitism when these are American Jews that are saying this.
Squawk anti-Semitism? Is that what you just said, right? Holy shit. Yeah, because it's fucking bullshit, right? It's a manipulative tool. They say every time they do something wrong and people call them on their bullshit, there's people who hate them. And this is not about every Jewish person, like I've said many a time. I went to my friend's bar mitzvah when I was 13. I have, the guy who started me in the Sajmark meditation, one of my favorite people, Fred, the preceptor, Jewish descent, right? This isn't about every Jewish person. This is about the fucking Zionist movement and the bullshit they pull, and then they hide behind this idea of victim consciousness and these other things. And, like people know it's all bullshit. Charlie Kirk was even calling about it. And so at some point it's just like, you stop being fucking evil, stop doing evil shit, and people won't hate you, right? So I want to wrap this one up. But whenever you are a person that claims to speak for God, it's the worst thing. It's the thing that I hammered the most here, right? People claiming to speak for God, claiming to say, this is what Charlie would have wanted kind of thing now, right? Where people, this is what Jesus would have wanted. This is, Jesus had nothing to do with America. God had nothing to do with America in terms of its creation. Well, there are some good things. There's some divine things. There's some inspirational things that you could say are channeled and spiritual in there, as an idea in the Constitution and the American government, right? But the two fundamental principles of capitalism and democracy are not of God, right? They're not a system based on divine will, right? So capitalism is pure materiality, which is demonic. It's pure egoism. So it's demonic. The whole thing, all of it, the economic system, all of it, right? There was no, usury system has existed, but not like it is now. And when Jesus was alive, he didn't embrace the usury system, nor capitalism, or democracy. Like, it wasn't a democracy with him and his disciples. There was no democracy. The disciples didn't get a vote, right? And if Jesus, Jesus had his issues. Like he was immature. He died at a young age, and he had some issues, but he was connected to God. And the best thing you can be is be a pure conduit for God. Like, once you start working for God, it becomes about what percentage of your energy goes into listening to God and to connecting with God. Like, you're connected with God, but just part of the time, right? Full time, is it, how strong is your connection? What's your spiritual approach? What's your capacity? What's your willingness? What's your commitment, right? It's like anything else. But, it becomes an unadulterated divinity flowing through you, where there's nothing from you, right? In the Sajmark system, the transmission that's given by preceptors and the master of the system, the reason that the master sittings are, I don't say better, but they're more, there's more of a capacity there. He has higher level of spiritual approach. So the energy flows through on a level, but also a purity. Like, when you give up yourself, your ego, and everything becomes just God, just divinity. When you've been divinized and there's nothing of yourself left. I mean, just nominal stuff to keep you alive, right? But, bare minimum ego. Then divinity flows through you in an unadulterated way. And the divinity can flow through, your capacity becomes, your spiritual approach, your closeness to God. It can be magnified because all these spiritual points and chakras and things are awakened and charged and divinized. And so there's just this, Niagara Falls level amount of divinity flowing through you. But when when you're working for God, it becomes about how pure the message is that comes through you. Does your ego ever get involved and manipulate the truth or distort the message, right? This kind of thing. Because when you connect to God, God shows you things and tells you things that you don't want to hear. And, doesn't necessarily make you do anything, but you kind of have to do it, right? Like it's just something you're like, oh, fuck, I guess I got, there's no escaping it. I mean, as you mature spiritually, you can be like, fuck you, God, I want to listen to you today, right? I want to do what I want to do. But that doesn't last very long because, you see the immediate effects and consequences. You end up having to do what God wanted you to do in the first place. You're like a little child who rebels and, does some bad, goes against the will of their parents and then fucks up and has to come back with their tail between their legs, right? And so there's a whole process here. But when you have that, when you have people connecting to divinity, there's going to be somebody who's, the most evolved, the best at it, right? And there's going to be people, elders, who are just farther along than other people, especially, as you get older and you evolve. And so there's no question of democracy because then you have a direct linkage to the divinity, God's will, and people are speaking from that place. They're submitting to God's will personally, and then they bring God's message to everybody else. And then everyone else has their connection to God, and they know that it's true. They know it's right because divinity within them is saying the same thing because everyone's on board. And that's not a democracy, right? God doesn't run a democratic system. We don't get a vote into what God does or wants to do. And capitalism is just materiality without any soul. Capitalism is just soulless, godless hedonism, right? And materiality, focused on material gain, material pleasures, and just all these things, egotistical pursuits. The Bible isn't the word of God. Like, it's just what people have been indoctrinated with. And, I talk about this, all the time. But as good as the Bible is, and as great a book as it, let's say it's the greatest spiritual book. Let's say there is a greatest spiritual book. There's some spiritual book out there that is pure divinity. People will still read it and interpret it in a self-serving way. So even if you have the Word of God, you have to interpret it the way that God wants you to interpret. And, a book is just a book. You can connect to God, and God can tell you right fucking now, like every one of you, every person in the world can connect to God. And, with some effort and some purification, people hear lots of voices. People are fragmented in their personalities. They can't quiet their mind. They can't settle down to hear God. That's why it takes meditative training and some spiritual cleaning of these samskaras and some of these things, grossness, that, it's like a song playing in your mind and you can't get rid of it when you go to sleep, right? This kind of thing, so people can't hear God because they're cluttered. Their internal world is cluttered. But you can ask God anytime you want and God will answer. And you have to just develop the capacity to hear the answer and then develop the capacity to accept the answer and then ultimately be grateful for the answer because oftentimes the answer isn't what you want to hear. That's why people don't ask God questions because they know what the answer is going to be and they don't want to hear that bullshit, right? They don't want to hear that stuff. So they don't want, their ego doesn't want to hear it. They know what they're going to be told, right? You know what you're doing wrong and you want permission from God, so you find some way to rationalize it. You find some way of giving yourself permission for something that deep down you know you're doing wrong. And that's the problem with humanity, because people don't want to connect to God because they don't want to connect with their soul, because you have to give up the things that you don't want to give up, right? Gambling, drinking, or just being a selfish person, whatever it might be. Now, I've said that there's an argument for all the bad shit that's happening. There's not an argument. It's happened for a reason. Like Donald Trump's president for a reason. He's destroying the country for a reason. And it isn't because of making America great again. That's a bullshit thing that they said to make him, appeal to people. And he's not destroying the country because he's doing God's will consciously, but he's doing God's will. The system's coming to an end, and there's going to be changes. And these changes are well-deserved. Everything that we get as a country, everything that Israel gets, everything that all these countries get is deserved on some level, right? It's something that needs to happen. All the abominations that are going to unfold, all the nightmares that are going to be actualized are part of what, they're the effects of living in the wrong direction, going in the wrong direction and living an ego-driven existence. So, there's a case to be made that all this is God's work, but they're not thinking about that consciously, right? And so Charlie Kirk is a piece of shit for coming out and pretending to speak for God and saying that capitalism and MAGA and Trump and Israel are, what God wants. God wants all these things. And it's just it's not true, right? Only from the standpoint of taking the system down. These aren't chosen people or these aren't people that are blessed. And, whatever work that they're doing for God is of a destructive nature. It isn't about, any of the things that they promise. It isn't about the, fulfilling prophecy. It isn't about any of that bullshit. It's about destroying, fulfilling prophecy in the sense of the system has to be destroyed. That we've gone awry. And there's contingencies, right? When we go against God's will, there's outcomes and consequences and contingencies to bring about a change in a course. And so all these people who pretend to speak for God and, all these religious fucks and all these people, they're just, it's just the worst thing. We're going in the wrong direction, and the left and the right agrees with it. They just blame each other instead of looking at the collective, because we're all accountable. Like we're all, we're not connected to God in a real way. We're not connected to our soul's path. And we live in a very hedonistic, evil, debt-based system that's demonic in nature because it goes against God's will. It's not based in our relationship with the divine, and that's mostly on our religion. That means our religion sucks because our religions have become so corrupt and watered down that they don't deliver God to people. They prevent people from connecting to God. And then when people aren't connected to God, they go and live materialistic lives. And so at some point, there's consequences for that. I mean, there's consequences all along. But eventually the system collapses. And in our case, we're 100% dependent on that system. We don't know how to live like natural humans. We've become weak and psychologically fucked and emotionally fragile. I mean, we're just a mess. Entitled, just like the worst people. Like just weak, worthless people that don't know how to live as natural human beings. No connection to the divinity within them. No sense of what natural human behavior is. No sense of family and selfishness and egoism. And so it's a bad time, right? Like, you're dependent on a system that's demonic, and you can't do anything else. You don't have the capacity, the training, the ability to go and start something else. Go build a better system. And so, it's going to be hard times for a while. And that's all there is to it. There's no, there's no solution. There's no, it's just, this is what you have to deal with, right? This is, you're going to eat shit for 100 years, right? Human beings will eat shit for 100 years, maybe more. And then, hopefully there'll be a renaissance and people will embrace their divinity within them. There'll be a switch in the yugas, the Kali Yuga will end and it'll give rise to a better time. And a new human being, and there'll be depopulation, which will help, because there's a lot of just low-level people here, low consciousness, evil people, and then low, animalistic people who are, just immature and haven't developed the capacity to live on their higher nature, to embrace their higher nature because they're fresh out of the animal kingdom or whatever. And so there's going to be massive depopulation, and then the people that will be here will have the capacity, and hopefully they'll have the will to embrace the divinity within them, to redeem themselves, to feel a sense of, beseeching God for forgiveness kind of thing. That's one of the things in the Whispers of the Brighter Worlds, asking God for, a chance at redemption. And, from that place of humility and a place that, hitting rock bottom kind of thing. Humanity's going to hit rock bottom. Like we're in free fall right now. But when we hit, and then humanity realizes, all right, we did this to ourselves. The people who have the capacity to realize that, everyone else will be gone, and then have to do something better. And, we have that opportunity. We'll see. But up until that point right now, there's nothing to be done. Just preparing for it. Like we can always embrace the divinity within us and reform our relationship with God. In fact, that's a mandatory thing. The meditation, there's gratefulness meditation, which is, the best system for me. It's the best system for such things. People who can do it will do it. It's I've done my best to, it's a free thing and it's there in the menu of the, everything's explained on the system. On the YouTube channel, the system is explained, the Sajmark system of meditation that I've been doing for years, the official organization crapped out. So, it's whatever it is, but it's there for people. And people, can connect to God in any way they choose. I mean, there's always, having a system is better and having a cleaning and transmission is a better way of going about it, but whatever. People can figure that out for themselves later on. I don't know. It just, there has to be a willingness to do it. That's the most important part. And so we'll see. But these, people who are the worst are the ones that, are like blasphemers, people who pretend that they speak for God and they are doing the exact opposite. Now, like I said, unintentionally they can be doing God's work, but that's still, they still suck, right? Like they're not doing it because of they want to work for God. They're doing it because they've self-deceived in some way. But, they're bringing about a bad outcome, or what people would consider a bad outcome that has divine ramifications, but they're not doing it for that reason. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing from the Apocalypse. And the Ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.